Hello and welcome to Convosessions. I am here with Marc and he has an incredible story and I'm very excited for you to hear it. Welcome, Marc. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Sherri. Thank you for having me on today.
No problem. So do you want to get right into it? Tell us your story, a little bit of
Yep.
the origin story about yourself.
I'm going to get right into it. And for those of you who know me, know this can go a little longer, but we're going to make it nice and tight and compact for everyone today. So long story short, I'm going to give you about 2.5 decades into minutes right now, and then we can extrapolate on there of what we think is pertinent. But I used to be a big fat banker living in Manhattan, thought money was everything, chasing the dollar, managing a $100 million portfolio for JP Morgan Chase. Fast forward, I went to a vacation one weekend in Florida. Someone offered me a free training session and I took it, and about 20 minutes through I was laying on the floor gasping for air saying, my God, why is this happening to me? And I had this, aha moment that finance wasn't the end for me. So basically grabbed the newly married wife, we moved to Florida, became a personal trainer. So I had to say to myself, well, who wants to hire a personal trainer who is overweight and doesn't have any licenses? So I started to take 60 pounds off, 4 clothing sizes off, acquired a half a dozen globally accepted licenses, and boom, next thing you know, I'm training. Opened up a company, worked privately for a while. Then we had the situation with the housing market back in 2010. Watched my house go down over 60%. So we moved back to New York, as you can tell from the accent, and said, you know what, let's just try doing this right now, but on a big box and see how that works. So I went to New York Sports Club. It's a regional, Town Sports International is the holding company, a couple hundred gyms there, and then had to do the whole process over, starting from the bottom. Then I was assistant manager, dual. PS, fast forward, after being there almost 5 years, hitting goal 99% of the time, have dozens of trainers under me, made the company millions. At the end of the day, my wife and I just weren't feeling the whole hour-and-a-half commute each way, working 12 hours a day, working for corporate, big box, making someone else very rich. So we said, let's go back to Florida. And we went back to Florida and reopened my personal training company, kept plugging away. And next thing you know, I think I was starting to think about how can I scale this even further? How can I help impact more people? And I remember it clear as day that I just crossed the threshold of taking over 10,000 pounds off of people cumulatively. Wow. And I felt like, okay, I took 10,000 pounds off of people, now what? So I go to a Tony Robbins event, and I got the honor of meeting and speaking with him. I briefly told him my story, and he looks at me and goes, okay, Marc, well, that's great that you helped take 10,000 pounds off, but how are you going to help millions of people? And that really level setted me, because everyone, when I say 10,000 pounds, I get the same wow reaction. And it was interesting to hear his reaction and say, okay, that's nice, but how about millions? Yeah. So I was thinking about starting a CBD line, which would be complementing to the business. And he said it was a great idea. And full disclosure, he's not a partner, investor, or what have you, but just got me fired up. And next thing you know, I'm on planes traveling and sampling and guinea pigging and altering. Fast forward a few more months, I went to a few more events, learned the business side of things. Then out in Los Angeles, was able to, on my wedding anniversary, be handed my brand new product that was from here and here, and they handed it to me and said, go. Wow. Gave it out to a whole bunch of movie stars, athletes, politicians, some really good people at one of his events in LA, and that was it. Game over. It just kept going. Next thing you know, I'm dealing with athletes, celebrities, influencers, law enforcement, children, families, animals, and we just kept going. Fast forward. That was on March 13th of 2019, to give you an idea of perspective. So the company, right before the full-blown COVID-19 situation, it was about a year in. It went up basically month over month for 12 months straight. And we only first started to feel the first decline over April. And actually, what I can say, I'm happy to report, is May now is starting to go back up. We're not quite exactly where we were, but we are almost there. had to do things a little differently. And for sake of the time on the call, I was at a lot of events for Tony Robbins. I was a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu events. I would do exhibits for NAGA, which is North American Grappling Association. They have over 750,000 fighters around the country. New Breed, Arte Suave. So I go to all these events, have demo tables, exhibits, people try it, they love it, boom. It was very easy. Now things we had to learn to pivot, which those of you from Rise Up, we heard that word I don't know how many times, and I actually can say I did pivot. And we went from every third, fourth day or so at an event to the internet, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Zoom calls, live calls, meeting people like yourself, just sharing the story. Because the last thing I'll say, and take a breath, and I usually have the different t-shirt on, is it says my purpose is to help heal the world one person at a time. So my goal is, now that we've helped thousands of people, the next phase is tens of thousands of people. Then the phase after that would be millions of people. And that's where I am, and that's how we got here today.
That's awesome. Okay, so I want to bring it back down to the digital. So you saw your dip happen, and then you went full force, like full throttle into using digital platforms. And then
Yes, absolutely. So, and one thing that I wanted to really bring up, and in my situation, it was very unique because you're not allowed to promote CBD on Facebook, on Instagram, on, which I just signed up for, TikTok. I made fun of everyone doing TikTok. I have a 10 and 12-year-old boy, and I was like, really? What are you guys watching all day? Well, after listening to a few Gary Vee episodes, a big fan of his, and he seems to think that TikTok might be, the next wave of the future. So yeah, I had to really hit the digital side hard, and without boosting anything. It's really easy if you could go on Facebook, have a few thousand friends, could take a picture or a promo or a sale and say boost, throw a little money at it, you get some orders, that's great. Zero. So I had to go live. I went live talking about the stock market, talking about personal training, talking about Tony Robbins, talking about mindset, motivation. I would DJ every Friday afternoon for happy hour virtually, because I know so many people were just so depressed. And it's just a fun hobby of mine. So Friday at 5 o'clock, I DJ, broadcast it live. Everyone has some fun. So yeah, digital is something you have to use. And in this environment, it's going to be used fivefold. So my advice is, if I had one piece of advice to say out of all of it, is don't really be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to do the videos. A lot of people, especially, I want to harp on the live aspect of it, which I think people don't even realize. I was doing that over 6 months, a year ago. I think live is going to be quadrupled from here. And what I find is people get really nervous. What do I say? What do I wear?
We just cut out.
Paraphrasing all these people, you hear this quote a lot. Don't focus on the how, focus on the why. If you have a true message, you're adding value, you're helping people, just pick that phone up, put that laptop on, come from here, and you'll be fine.
Exactly. You know what? So many people get caught up in like things that don't matter. What I always tell people is, you are your hardest critic. Like, I'm my hardest critic, because I came up here and I was like, oh crap, I just have a t-shirt, I'm at my cottage, oh my hair, because we were doing outside work. And I'm just like, no, I got to do the call. And the thing is, I'm the hardest on myself. Other people aren't being like, oh, why did she just like blink really long? That's so weird. We say that about ourselves. So I'm always like, guys, ignore that voice that tells you can't do it. Anyone can. Because when I watch people, I'm not nitpicking their weird habits or how they pronounce or whatever, right? I'm watching and I'm like, man, that was valuable. Oh, I'm going to put that into action. So why would we think people are looking at us doing that? So.
We could be our own worst critics. And again, even as far as an hour ago, I was just watching a video with Jay Shetty, and, I was taking notes down, and again, not to paraphrase, he was just saying everyone thinks about it, then they procrastinate, then they're worried, and then some of them just don't do it. And at the end of the day, I mean, look, I was a banker into a personal trainer, and I had never really sold a product per se, but I knew that I was into health and fitness.
Yeah.
I'd taken 10,000 pounds off people. I kept over 11 years, almost 60 pounds off myself and a half a dozen clothing sizes almost. So I'm about being healthy, and I'm not into big pharma. I'm not into everyone taking tons of medication for everything.
Yeah.
And I'll share a link another time, and please feel free to share it. But it was a magazine article written about my company and myself a few months ago. And one of the main stories was a gentleman who was a NYPD SWAT, a former MMA world champion, and without getting to the punchline, 16 surgeries, 7 metal rods, pins, and screws in his body, and was taking 120 Percocets a month. I met him. He tried a few of my products. In 45 days, he's drug-free for 11 months.
Wow, that's
so when I do something like that, I mean, it's
that's a game changer.
Game changer. And it really just kept fueling. And when you see these stories of whatever your passion is and it's serving people, you'll just want to do more, and it'll just go. And I'm really a believer of, if you go into something and really try to serve and help and just do it, everything else on the back end will work itself out.
Exactly. I feel exactly the same way. When people are like, oh, well, I just want to make millions. I'm like, well, you're coming from a bad point of perspective, because what you want is everyone's money. But if you solve a problem, if you have what they want, you probably will end up making your money, and it will be fun along the way. So I always say to everyone, you can monetize passion. You just have to figure out how to. And usually that passion is, people love to help each other. Like, really, we live in a good world. People, we want to help. We want to see people succeed. So I love that advice. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you. And surround yourself by people like that, because again, you know, even to paraphrase, it's fresh in my head. We just saw it about an hour ago on another live call. You are Will.i.am. Actually, let's give him credit.
Okay.
You are the 5 people you surround yourself with.
I believe it.
So, you know, we all have those friends from college or back in the day that, you know, we like, and, you know, you're on the group text or chat or whatever, and sometimes they'll say something you don't agree with or it doesn't add value. You know, look, I'm not telling everyone out there, go out and get rid of every friend you ever had, but, you know, do you want to spend more time fighting with your friend about, is COVID going to kill everyone as you walk outside of your house? You know, we feel a little different here in Florida than if my friends and family who live in New York.
Yes.
You know, I today was out in the gym. I was in the post office. I went to the supermarket. Our roads are busy and full. Sure, some people are wearing masks, some people wearing gloves, but, you know, I tell this to my friends in New York while I'm calling in between the stops, and they can't even just wrap their head around it. And, you know, some of them are going to, you know, get confrontational with you. Some of them are going to agree with you. Some will be jealous, but, you know, going full circle back to it, get rid of the naysayers, the negative people, the dream stompers. If I tell you how many people told me, oh, Mark, oh my God, there's a million brands of CBD out there already. Oh, Mark, everyone, Tom, Dick, and Harry, my cousin's brother's friend. Guess what? You know what? I wasn't able to invest a dime in marketing or advertising. And I went from 0 to 6-figure business in about 9 months.
Yeah.
So just imagine all those people who said no. What's funny is a handful of them are customers right now. So
you know what? You cannot listen to other people's voices, because I love the surrounding yourself. Today, I had a morning call with a few people, and it got negative quick. And I was like, ugh, like, I don't want to wake up. Like, it sucked. And then I kind of was in a little bit of a funk, and I kind of blamed the Zoom call, because I'm like, you know what, every day I wake up positive, and I'm like, I'm a positive person, but it was just like 10 minutes or 20 minutes of just, and I was like, oh, this weight is awful. How do people live like this? And I always say, like, my little thing is, you know what, don't be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're doing something wrong. I'm trying to surround myself with people that do have the 6-figure company, because that's where I want to get. I want to push to that level. And I'm never going to do that if I'm hanging out with people who are like, you know, not in the right mindset, and people who don't think you can. Like, I'm a yes person. I've always been a yes person. If someone says, can you do that? I'm like, yes, I can. So I just think it's so important to surround yourself with the right people. And if those people are really hindering your success, your mindset, there's 1,000 things that can happen. Remove yourself. And people are like, well, what if it's your mom? I'm like, well, don't talk to her every day. I'm not saying cut people out of your life.
Right.
I'm just saying take a step back and make new friends. So,
Yep.
and you know
And
what?
to that, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. And to that point, not to keep going back to my mentor, and again, I listen to his works, I go see his events, but
Yeah,
there's a quote that I say ad nauseum: proximity is power.
good one. Yeah.
So, you know, when I'm at an event, forget about 6-figure, 7, 8, 9-figure people that I've spent 50, 60 hours at a seminar with, the knowledge is just, I mean, and they're there to help. And that's the great thing, because, you know, there are people, listen, I've met people that have zero money and are really in a bad way up to multi-billionaires in the past year.
Yeah.
And what's funny is a lot of it is mindset. You know, I know people that make 50 to 100,000 bucks a year that are just walking around with a smile ear to ear, and everything is great, and they're on cloud nine. And I've met people that make 50 million a year that like are miserable.
Yeah.
And again, not to keep quoting, but they're all fresh in my head.
Yeah.
Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Yeah. And the thing is,
So,
yeah, and for you have to find out what motivates you. To me, money doesn't motivate me at all. Like, my husband and I, we have been really, really like broke, and we were so happy. And now we're doing better, and we're still so happy. Money is not at all, it's a necessary evil to me. Like, you need it. But to me,
right,
it's not the main thing. And I think, yeah, as long, to me, it's like, be happy. If chasing your dream over here is it just for fun, you don't want to at all monetize, by all means don't, as long as you're happy. Be happy.
right.
So, and no
Make
one
it a
has to
hobby.
quit.
Make it a hobby.
Exactly. And the thing is, when people are unhappy, I'm like, then quit. Like, I was just talking about this to my husband yesterday. Once I worked at a business for like 11 years, once it started getting a little bit too like, everything was closing in, I started getting treated not the best. I was like, I'm out. I'm not enjoying waking up anymore and going to work. I'm leaving. I'm done. I quit. And I made
Yep.
that decision like that, and I quit. And then I was able to go full throttle with my business. And then it was the best decision ever.
And
So,
good for you. And a lot of people, you know, you're young, you know, they wake up, and I didn't want to, and I hope everyone watching this doesn't want to, in 30, 40 years, look back and say, you know, maybe I should have done that CBD line. Maybe I
yeah,
should have done that digital marketing company. But
yeah,
now I work for some Fortune 100 company, and I clock in, I clock out, and I go through the motions of life like a zombie.
yeah.
And it's just like, what's the point? You
There's,
know, and then going back to the money, you know, what I find is all that is, and everyone could talk about how, you know, money's the root of all evil, and it's only money and dead presidents and paper.
yeah,
The reality is, it's the money isn't really what everyone's after. It's what they're doing with that money.
yeah,
It's, you know, I want to go to Asia with my family and spend 2 weeks. You know, you'll never forget that for the rest of your life.
yeah,
You will forget that you might have made XYZ thousands of dollars on a transaction,
yeah,
you know, and I can take it to a lot of different personal stories, but I'm sure that everyone watching this and or listening knows that if you really think back to some of the best moments of your life and your best memories, I mean, look, when I was a stockbroker way back in the day, you know, when I was in my 20s, and I had phone calls that I made $5, $10, $15,000, you know, and I remember those days, but what I do remember more of is when I bought my first Lexus in my 20s, when
yeah,
I took my family to Puerto Rico and paid for it.
yeah,
You know, when I paid for my son's college education in full, and it's waiting for him when he goes to college.
yeah,
You know, it's the things that we're doing with that money, the experiences, the items. That's what's really giving us the happiness.
yeah, for sure. All right, I want to kind of touch on something that we've been circling around the whole time. Anyway, you keep mentioning Tony Robbins and Gary Vee and all these people. It sounds like you invest in yourself a lot.
Yes, I
Okay,
do.
that's awesome, because I always tell people, like, again, it's kind of like the surround yourself. It's like a virtual surrounding yourself with people who believe in
Correct.
you. Tell us about why business owners should be investing in themselves with these conferences, why it's worth taking the time away. Like, a lot of people are like, I can't afford it, or I can't, I don't have the time for that. But why do you think it's so important, and how has it changed your life?
Perfect. So the first thing I want to disclose that a lot of people can't even believe is that, over my life, I was in and out of, read this book and Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And I knew of Tony Robbins back in the day, used to listen to the CDs. And then I kind of left it alone. It wasn't honestly until a couple of years back where I really recently started re-engaging. Now, again, not to keep going back to Tony, but we're on the topic of one of my mentors, because he always says, find a mentor and model them. There's a difference of copying and I'm wearing the same shirt or the same pants or these trendy sneakers than modeling someone who is successful, who already has done this. And, at the end of the day, the point was that you have to spend these time, because one of the sayings they say in the business mastery program is the difference is, are you a operator or are you an owner?
Mm-hmm.
Now, an operator, which I was my whole life as a personal trainer. So when I'm sitting in these events for, let's call it a 5-day event, 14 hours a day, and I'm not training anyone, I'm not getting paid. So in that model, I'm an operator and I'm like, oh my God, you know how much money I'm losing sitting here? But at the end of the day, for me personally, I learned how to start transitioning from becoming an owner rather than an operator. So i.e. now, yes, the training business could be doing zero while I'm sitting in 70 hours of a seminar, but guess what? I'm getting orders the entire time from my CBD line. So I'm making money while I'm learning. Now, as far as other people, listen, I have written on my whiteboard over there on my wall, not to look away, but Gary Vee, 9 to 10. Jay Shetty is usually on at 12. Damon John is usually on at 1. And, a lot of people say, well, sure. Listen, you probably know it too. And I know so many people that always say, well, of course, Gary Vee is successful. He sold his wine business for $40 million or $100 million. Well, guess what? Gary Vee didn't just wake up and start a wine company and all of a sudden clicked his heels and made $40 to $100 million. He worked at it. He listens to other people. Tony Robbins didn't just wake up and say, I'm going to be the #1 motivational coach. I mean, he listens to Jim Rohn. He listens to Jack Canfield. He listens to Benny Brown. He listens to, all kinds of people. He reads books. You have to feed your mind, you have to feed your body, you have to spend the time. It's almost like, and I can't even use the word taking a couple steps backwards to go a few steps forwards, because I don't look at any of these as going backwards. Again, I've been to 7 Robbins events in under a year and a half. I've been to another half a dozen of all random other different people. I've met some other really great speakers. At the end of the day, every video, every live call, every Zoom, everything, I pick up one little thing. You can't even walk around my house without seeing one of these notebooks filled with notes. I have whiteboards everywhere in the room. So lastly, to tighten it all up, spend the time. Spend the money, do it. I cannot stress enough. Everyone needs it. Everyone needs a push. Everyone needs a coach. Even the top athletes, movie stars, superstars, whatever field you're in, they have coaches. 100%. They go to seminars. They expand on their life and their business. So you have to paramount education, motivation, technology. And the last thing I'll say on this note is, now in this environment, it's every 10 seconds I feel like someone's giving it away for free.
There's no excuse anymore.
Zero.
First of all,
zero. I've sent hundreds of links, hundreds of people. I say, get on every time I get something. Go on this live call. Go on this seminar. Go in this group. Go and rise up.
Yeah.
Rise Up was fantastic.
Yeah, it was so good.
4,000 people. You know what? At the end of the day, I look back and say, I can't believe they didn't have 10,000 people. Like, who is getting this link and saying, you know what? I'm so busy from 1 to 2 o'clock that I can't better myself because I need to watch Netflix, because I need to sleep in, because I want to go to the pool. Guess what? There's 168 hours in a week. And I always say that to everyone because I think about in the training aspect, find a few hours for the gym, add another few hours in for your mindset and your life, and then it'll just be night and day difference.
Yeah, you know what I did at first? I've always been into learning. Like, I've always just liked listening to podcasts. I've always liked books. Once I became a business owner, then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm too busy. I don't have time to. I was like, okay, how do I make time? Either if I don't schedule it in my actual calendar, it might not happen. But I'm like, okay, I can listen to a podcast when I'm cooking supper, when I'm having a shower, when I'm going for a walk, when I'm exercising, when I'm going to the grocery store. Like, there is always time. And then I think I spend about, I would guess on average, like an hour a day, probably just listening. And sometimes it's just background, like while I'm working. Other times it's like note and paper and I'm actually sitting, like the Rise Up Challenge. Funny enough, the Rise Up Challenge, I signed up, and then I was like, oh man, I'm so busy. What do I do? And then I was like, forget it. You paid for it. Just go there. And I learned so much. It was just really good, like, information that I could put into nice words for my clients, like the fact sheets and stuff like that. Cause I know it in here, but to be able to be like, okay, here's what you need to do. I was like, man, I just made more money in that day, although I wasn't necessarily making money, except that of course money comes in, but it's going to grow my business that much more. And that's why it's called an investment.
Yeah, I promise you. And man, I was thinking about that one day. Were you on when it was 8 hours? It was over 20 speakers.
Yeah, that was so long.
I mean, when was the last time, and again, I'm probably more conditioned to that because I've been through 14-hour days in an event, but to hear 20 speakers, which offhand, at least 4 were billionaires, another half a dozen probably worth 50 to a few hundred million.
They're the best of the best.
How do you not listen to that?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Maybe you're a multi-billionaire or hundreds of millionaire, or you're just think you're the best thing since whatever. But at the end of the day, and that's another thing, you need to check your ego at the door. Because again, going all the way back to that day when I walked into that room and I said, I took 10,000 pounds off people. And he's like, okay, like, but what are you gonna do for millions of people?
Yeah.
You know, you need that. You need to get that level set. You need to learn from people who've done it already. So when I text a group of 1,100 people and say, everyone jump on right now. You know, Dave and John is on. Oh, okay, because I'm sorry. You've all started a brand like FUBU. You're all on Shark Tank. You're all super successful. You don't need to learn any nuggets of anything from a guy who came from nothing that is like a billionaire. So, hey, listen, you know, what is it? You can bring the horse to water, but you can't force him to drink or whatever. So I try to bring the water to everyone always. And, you know, hopefully they take advantage. Yeah.
You got to put it out there.
Yeah,
Ego is so detrimental, and in life, period, in relationships, in business. But in business, and it comes back to, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, to me, if you are the smartest person in the room, that's an ego problem. You want to surround you with people that are a little lower than you so you feel good about yourself.
Yep.
Like,
listen, you're in the wrong room. If you're in a room that's the smartest room, you're in the wrong room.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've been in rooms, and just even a quick story, I was in Texas, like I think March 7th, was right before COVID actually full blown. And I was at a private party at someone's home with 200 people. And I'll just say the net worth combined in that room was probably over $4 billion.
Wow.
And I just walked around in that room, just saying hello to people and listening. I could talk with the best of them. Trust me. I could have this interview go for days. But at the end of the day, I know I was there to be a sponge. And just the smallest thing you pick up, if it's one conversation, look, You know, when you're talking to a guy that's wearing a $40,000 watch, you might want to listen to him.
Yeah.
When you're in a $5 million home and a $50,000 party for a few hours, you might want to introduce yourself. And
Yeah.
again, surround yourself with those people and you'll be just fine.
Exactly. All right. Well, this has been amazing. You want to leave the people with one thing that they need to be doing on digital that, you know that if they go home and do it, they will see a difference.
Wow, my top one, going live. I think live. I mean, again, I like my Facebook posts and I've been neglecting Instagram a little. PS, we're actually going to streamline everything through now. More YouTube, I'm going to start focusing on. I think people kind of left it alone. And now I feel like there's another resurgence.
Yeah.
Get your posts out there on Facebook, get your posts out there on Instagram. But, there's just something about the live. It's non-scripted. When you come from here,
Mm-hmm.
people really feel it.
Yeah.
I have made friends, business contacts, and gotten orders straight off minutes after me doing a live. I've done lives talking about the stock market or fantasy football, and then all of a sudden I got a CBD order from someone watching 10 minutes later.
Well,
Just because they liked what I was about. They liked the mojo per se. They felt it. Because that's the last thing I'll say is people feel it. People know when you have an agenda and you get out there or you want to brag or oh, look at my new this. Oh, people don't care. We could scroll through and go to the next one. But when you're saying like, hey, I just want to help everyone at 1:00 today. If you go on this link, there's free speakers. It'll help add value. Someone's going to say, you know what? That guy's awesome. He doesn't make any money from that. He's just trying to help. So maybe, you know what? Let me look at his link. And then they go and then they see the videos and they see the testimonials and they see me really interacting to these people. One of the testimonials I have is a video. A guy drove 45 minutes to my house to buy stuff, an elderly man with shingles. And then he drove 45 minutes back. That guy is a friend for life now. He's probably almost twice my age, but you know what? He saw the videos. He got in touch with me. He drove up, met me, and we talk. And he's a customer and a friend now. So do the live videos. Don't be shy. Don't worry about what you say. Even if you mess up, I have plenty of videos where I'm fumfering over my words and I say, should I do a delete and do it over? No, because guess what? People want to see that you're human.
Exactly. Well, it's like being in a real life situation. I don't know why people like switch the idea of like selling online. I'm a human. If I was at a party and someone came up and just sold to me, they didn't introduce, they didn't ask questions, they had no relationship, they just sold me their product, I'd walk away from that conversation. Online is the same thing. People, and they will walk with their, non-views, clicks. They watch for 5 seconds and they leave. We have the metrics, we can see. No one is able to. Relationship matters, and a great way to do it is through video. So I love the live. Yeah. So, all right. Well, you know what? I really appreciate everything. I think there's a ton of value. I'm really excited for everyone to watch this. And again,
thank you very much. If there's any questions, and I'll say this to anyone who's watching this going onward, if you have any questions about
how do they get a hold of you?
I am very easy. So I'll say www.quantum-pt.com is the website. I am on Facebook under Marc Siegl, under Quantum Performance Training, under Quantum Performance CBD. I am on Instagram on Quantum Performance Training at Quantum Performance CBD. I am on TikTok at Quantum Performance. And I'll leave the cell phone number out there because it's getting quite full lately, but you can also email me at marcsiegelqpt@gmail.com. How do you like that if you want?
All right, perfect.
So there's enough ways to get in touch with me. Thank you again for having me on. It was awesome. And I hope that even if there was one person that took away something from this call, mission accomplished.
Exactly. That's the goal. All right. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day.